Uh, Hello everybody. I know I had that run in with the demon. It's invisible, active imagination, right? I explained a little bit of that. What I ended up learning was active imagination, more or less, is just they call it the astral, but both of the people who originally saw this are never going to see the second video, except apparently the girl did. Weird. But anyway, one of the only two people who liked or disliked the video. If you disliked this video, leave a like, and if you liked this video, leave a dislike. Um, so, I end up learning about magic. I ended up learning about God. I ended up learning about the supernatural and heaven, and I didn't really think much of it for a very long time. It was about a year I was still smoking weed and playing video games and generally being useless. Um, and one day I decided I'm going to go on 4chan's paranormal board and decide to educate myself a little. God, he gave me this ability to watch a YouTube video or a otherwise type of video, and I would be able to speak into the past to that video, like I'm right here, and I'm speaking with my mind into this past where the video was created, not posted. And somehow this retrocausality, this time loop, ends up always happening, almost like there's a knot in the thread of time, if you will. Because before that loop still happened. But after that loop still happened, which is why things can be faded in such a way where I could send a message from the future into the past. Sending a message from the past into the future, oddly enough, is more difficult because instead of a single straight line, you have to deal with timelines. And so if you do not predict that this timeline will occur because a dog gets run over in the street somewhere around here versus escapes, which is where you got right here, and now suddenly you're best friends with your neighbor because you had to go and catch the dog, versus now you're worst enemies with your neighbor because you had to kill, or because the dog got run over and they jumped in front of your car or something. So that's just one of the essences of time travel that I've learned. I'll try and do something a little bit more less vloggy, I guess, but there are these seven governing principles that dictate everything invisible in the universe. They are in no particular order: rhythm or motion and forces. They are perspective or light and the mind. They are correspondence or measurements and distances, or just generally speaking, measurements of a count. It's weird how, invisibly speaking, the concept of the number one still exists. Just think about that for a second there. If the reality didn't exist, the number one still could, just by merit of it existing. So there's correspondence and measurements, not in a nutshell or anything like that, but like just as a hook, a mantra, if you will. And then there's vibration or matter and forces, which, the old Kabbalists, yes, you Hermeticist naysayers from X, I know what you're saying right now. Vibration, vibration, vibration. And it's so cool that those old Hermeticists called it vibration when we just found out that every particle vibrates. So, and that's the reason why matter is held together, is because all of the atoms are vibrating together. But anyway, yeah, ancient Greeks, learning from this guy named Hermes Trismegistus, talking about these seven principles. They ended up calling the principle matter vibration, because Hermes said that he saw visions from the future granted by Thoth or whatever. But anyway, So vibration, and then there's polarity or energy and charges, which denotes energy of light and dark. It denotes essentially what you can use those two energies, named quintessence and spirit, to do. You can use quintessence in order to make solids, and you can use spirit in order to make ephemeral things. Ephemeral things do not typically cut physical things. And quintessence weathers away and dies if it's not turned into something that's alive, in which case whatever is alive can be eaten, but the quintessence itself will weather and erode away very quickly. So let's say, for instance, that you made some dirt. I wish I could do that, but a fun clause or whatever in a future video. But let's say I tried making some dirt, and it's made out of quintessence, right? It's made out of mana, if you believe in the biblical word for quintessence, which is mana, or power, or what the flower. Because basically, okay, so the word mana dates all the way back, and yes, I will get to the seventh principle soon, and the sixth principle soon. But all the way back in the day, I got a full 10 minutes. Just bear with me, future. Thank you. Anyway, yes, I know I've said anyway too much. The quintessence weathers away much more than it would normally. If I tried making a rock, it would weather away into dust. If I tried making gold, it would probably end up not being gold. Gold is relatively difficult to make due to the atomic weight and amount of protons in its nuclei. Just the type of metal that it is. Metals in general are difficult to make, and I think it might be on an odd number, the proton in the nuclei, so it's even trickier in order to use the invisible principles of vibration in order to actually cause that vibratory element to be apparent. And then there's sixth principle, cause and effect. Again, this is in no particular order. But sixth principle, cause and effect. It's pretty self-explanatory, I think. Time, basically, this principle states that time is an illusion. It doesn't exist. What does exist is that there is a cause for every effect. And so that is the only thing that governs over time. If there was a cause to something, then you can stretch or compress that time, or even multiply, divide, and skew it, as I like to call it, in order to make it so that way... Thank you, dear audience member in my brain from the future, saying that their mind was blown when I skewed time in front of them. But he was in the spirit, apparently. No, he was in the live audience, but I digress. I was saying words. Cause and effect, time isn't real. Oh yeah, as long as there was a cause to an effect, it doesn't happen to happen at a 1-to-1 second. And the best evidence that you could see of this invisible principle at work is actually pretty evident. Are you in the present moment right now? Is it even possible to think in the present moment? Think about what a present moment is, because you are always technically in the past. It always takes time for your eyes to get information read from the light hitting them to receive it into the brain. Electricity cannot move faster than light, and light is the only thing, because it is the fastest, considered instantaneous. Now, that's cause and effect. And the final principle is the principle that threw me for a loop when I first heard of it, and probably would throw most people for a loop when they first hear of it, which is gender, or what I would call reproduction, or simply life. This principle governs over anything that reproduces and grows, anything with DNA, even anything with RNA. Would be considered a thing that reproduces and therefore would be governed over this invincible principle of life. And so I've learned a lot of these things. I've learned mechanically how they look, how physically they should interlace with reality, how how it's supposed to work, right? But I mean, there's all these things like resources and techniques and materials even that go into doing the particularly fun stuff, like making an animated cartoon that can animate itself without an AI, or what's another thing? Putting out a forest fire with your mind. I've done that one before. I drew a smiley face in the sun. You can see that one in the thumbnail. I'll put that one in the thumbnail. Why not? So yeah, if you're wondering why I'm smiling, it's because I put a smiley face in the sun with my mind. And it's all because of that first principle of rhythm or motion or forces. Basically, by understanding the essence of what a force is, which is essentially just a wave. If you can grasp your mind around that a force, no matter what it is, even if it's stagnant and strong and a brick wall on a brick wall, there's a wave interacting with another wave, and it interacts with the world around it. Now, as you begin to see the invisible when it comes to waves, when you understand that reality itself is malleable because these waves have invisible properties that allow them to be malleable to observation, you begin to understand that forces can convert to other forces, and they can be done this way through aether. Basically, I think that all of this invisible stuff is done through dark matter, dark energy, and aether. I'm using my mind and probably my brainstem and spinal cord maybe as some type of antenna or relaying device, just simply because it has enough calcium to hold the easiest, tiniest charge. And when you're dealing with electromagnetivity on a dark elemental scale or a dark energetic scale, sorry, not dark elemental, but dark energetic scale, you have to understand that you only need a tiny, tiny, tiny amount of electricity in order to be able to make something conduct through this hypothetical material that is smaller than conventional matter. So basically, forces can translate into other forces because a wave at the end of the day is still a wave. Matter can have properties of other matter because at the end of the day, it is still vibrating. A mind can overtake another mind, and two perspectives can become one simply because the invisible property of a mind states you are. You are not simply being something. You are not a being. You are a doing as well. And you can shut out the being in order to force someone to be only their doing, so to speak. I'm not using occultic words or anything like that. But all of this stuff has already been discovered and well known and documented in some cases. Not on camera, though there have been very famous examples of people who mysteriously no one had ever figured out the secrets to their tricks. And a lot of these people, they get by doing party tricks. It's kind of a humiliating thing to do because in order to reach this point where you can see the invisible, a lot of people describe it akin to enlightenment. It reminds me, I met an enlightened master one time and I told him, I have been a loser my whole life. What do I do now? And he said, so what did you do before? And I said, I suppose I chopped wood. It was the only thing available, and so what do I do now that I'm enlightened to get money? I assume there's a lot that I could do. And he says, well, chop wood. And that's just a sad, horrid fact of reality. But I hit the 15-minute mark, and I'll tell you guys another story another time, another vloggy, another occultic vlog, yeah. Yeah. These aren't going to have a particular theme or anything to them. Just 15-minute blurges of me talking about my paranormal experiences, both new and old, since they never really seem to stop. Who knows? Maybe we'll get a ghost orb on camera or something. Come on. Just thought I could pray for one. Anyway, I will catch you all later. This has been Dinosaur or Schizo Gamer talking to you with the voices in my head.